EQU by ChoiceCenter Leadership University is where emotional intelligence meets extraordinary results. Founded in 1998 in Las Vegas, ChoiceCenter has empowered thousands of people around the world to unlock their full potential through experiential trainings and coaching. Here on EQU, we dive into the inspiring stories and transformative journeys from both famous faces and everyday heroes. Graduates who have harnessed emotional intelligence to have transformed their lives in ways that are nothing short of remarkable. From skyrocketing their careers to deepening relationships, balancing creative pursuits with focusing on health, finances, and family. Our guests share the real-world impact of EQ on living a life you author and love. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and equipped with insights that can serve you to create radical results in your own life. If you're ready to dream, declare, and deliver, let EQU show you what's possible. Welcome to EQU, the podcast where we explore how emotional intelligence transforms our lives, our businesses, and our relationships. I'm Robin Williams.
And I'm Corrine Clement. If you enjoyed today's episode, and we believe you will, please remember to like, follow, and share it with others. And while you're at it, drop us a rating and review. If you're a ChoiceCenter grad, you know the power of feedback. So we'd love to hear how EQU is impacting your life. Our guest today is someone who truly embodies resilience, leadership, and most of all, heart. Dwayne Murray is a serial entrepreneur and business leader with a diverse background spanning insurance, healthcare administration, and business strategy. He's the owner of a highly successful State Farm agency he launched in 2016 and is built into a thriving insurance and financial services firm that has achieved top-tier recognition, including lifetime franchise contract status in his first year.
For those of you that are not familiar with insurance, this is an incredible accomplishment. Opening his agency was actually one of Dwayne's PSP goals, which means personal strategic plan, while he was a student in LV 98 at ChoiceCenter back in 2009. And today you'll hear him share how clear intention and never accepting no for an answer brought his vision into reality. You'll also find yourself inspired by his personal journey of transformation. From breaking through the limiting beliefs of growing up without a father to navigating the unimaginable loss of his wife and stepping up as a single dad to raise their beautiful baby girl, to finding love again and having more kids and raising them all to practice the EQ tools and principles he has honed and accessed over the last 16 years.
Dwayne has leaned into emotional intelligence to build his many business ventures, become a devoted father of 3, and lead his life with intention and impact. Dwayne, welcome to EQU.
Hello, Robin. Hello, Corrine.
Hello.
It is so good to see you. Welcome to the show. And for those who may not know you, you're a hometown hero, right? You're born and raised in Las Vegas?
Yes, born and raised in North Las Vegas in the historic West Side, a neighborhood we call Valley View, and went to Valley High School, which in those times we were the school against the odds. Our school in football, I want to say my freshman year, we went 0-11.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
0-11 on the varsity. The next year we went 11-1.
Wow, quite a turnaround.
And quite a turnaround. So I was very, very happy to be a part of that.
Where'd you go to college?
Football carried me out of here. Got a chance to go to Mississippi Valley State. And let me tell you, traveling from Las Vegas to Mississippi, whirlwind, 180, completely different world.
2 different worlds, yeah.
Left after 2 years, joined my fraternity Kappa Alpha Psi, became a fraternity member there, built a brotherhood with those guys there, came back to UNLV and completed my undergrad and graduate school here in accounting and finance, and then my master's in healthcare administration and public health.
You are a rebel. There you go. UNLV, let's go. You spent much of your career actually in healthcare. What drew you to that industry?
I stumbled into it. So we were in our accounting and finance class, and I forget the exact class, but they did a guest speaker day. And on that day, we had Glenn Lerner, and then we had a gentleman named Tom May, who was a division president of HCA. Glenn Lerner was there, and at the time, you know, everybody was talking about, well, do I go to law school, get a JD, MBA? Glenn being the famous guy at the time, everyone just attacked Glenn, right? We want to, we're talking to Glenn. Tom May was there, and I said, I never thought about healthcare. And so I approached him, and out of everyone in the class that he spoke to, I'm the only one that asked him for an internship because you needed an internship. And so talk about the power of asking and speaking it. I asked him, he gave me an internship, and that's how I began in healthcare. Yep.
Wow. Glenn Lerner. I remember moving here from California and I still remember his commercials. Glenn Lerner is the place to go. Call 877-1540.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You've been an entrepreneur for a bunch of years. So at what point did you start venturing into having some of your own businesses?
Back in the early 90s, well, the late 90s, everybody wanted to own a record label due to Jay-Z, Damon Dash, Kareem Biggs, Master P. So my actual first business was at 19. I started a record label with a couple of friends of mine called Game Time Entertainment. So I've always had this entrepreneurial itch. I always knew I wanted to do something different. My next pitch out there was an assisted living facility called a New Beginning Elder Care Services.
And that sounds like a natural throw from being a
in
rap
healthcare.
label.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well, so the rap label was like while I'm in school, right? So I'm in college going through undergrad. We're doing this, right? We're passing out CDs. We're doing what we saw on TV. But then, as I got into grad school and undergrad, then it was like, oh, you know what? There's long-term care. So I started an assisted living facility. That was going well. Did that for about 3 years. Then the economy tanked. So we lost a lot of our high-end clients. People were unemployed, losing their homes. So they brought their parents back home. So I ended up closing that down. That's when things started to become evidently clear about what my direction was. I wanted to have more control in the direction and day-to-day of my life, because what happens if this is gone? What do I do? Do I have to up and relocate, or I have to move out of state? I knew my life wasn't built to do that, and it was something I didn't want to do. And that's the first time I kind of felt the helplessness of what was going on around me and very little control. And I said to self, never let that happen again.
I think that's right about the time we met you. 2009, the crisis was up. Everything was swirling. Your story's common in different versions, right? And things were a little bit crazy. So now we know what you were doing right there. How did you find your way to us at ChoiceCenter?
So, you're going through it, and you're going through these crazy conversations. And Darius, I think Darius is LV92. So Darius is a fraternity brother of mine. So Darius and I met at UNLV. He just is like, hey, I think your answers that you're looking for as to what your next moves are, something is avoiding it. Something about yourself is giving you all this misdirection and self-doubt, unclarity. And he just said, hey, I believe this training was going to help clarify some things for you. And I'm like, oh man, I got to sit down in another classroom and take some more notes and read some more books. And he's like, nah, it's a little different. It's experiential training. He says it's like riding a bike. And he goes, once you get on it, it's a training that's going to stick with you. You ain't got to worry about writing nothing down. And I'm like, what do you mean? And Darius says, hey, listen, you tried everything else, right? He goes, and we're at the bottom. He goes, so what is there to lose? You trust me? So yeah, I trust you. He says, well, then take the class. I says, all right. He probably say it was a little bit more arguing, but yeah, I showed up.
I was going to say that sounded pretty easy the way you were saying that right there. And what did you actually hear that had you say yes?
I think the things that stuck out the most was, we've tried everything else, and do you trust me? In our fraternity, we operate amongst each other. Darius is one of my closest guys, like brothers down and out. And there's a level of trust that we operate amongst, to a degree of saving each other's lives.
That's beautiful.
He basically was saying to me, you trust me? I'm like, yeah, I do. Then you could take a class. Obviously, money was a bigger issue. It was money, it was time. But Darius, he stood with me. He was very like, dude, you got to do this. I believe I probably was the first of our fraternity brothers to go. It caused everyone else. Tony, you had Ennis, you had Elliot, you had Elliot's wife. All of a sudden, everyone broke through. But I think I was the first.
Yeah, it was a chain reaction for sure.
Yeah.
Tell us what you discovered about yourself.
Immediately, what I discovered was the discussions I had about myself really didn't exist in the corporate world or what I perceived it to be. My conversation with myself was really around my lack of not having a father. Through that process of going through discovery, which is the initial training for those out there who don't know, it is about discovering those limiting beliefs. And it's about, what are you pretending not to know? And what's that conversation that you're having internally? It's the real underlying conversation. So for me, I was full of self-doubt, not very confident, just uncertain about Dwayne Murray and the value that I was in the world. And a lot of us have identities in our professions, especially when we're young, right? Identities and titles, right? I'm CEO.
Absolutely.
or identities in where you live or what kind of car you drive. At the time, at 26, those are things that are important. Those things are the things that give you status and valuation in the world. And I felt like I had none of that. Then the dominoes started, the conversation. I have a father. I didn't go to Stanford. I only went to UNLV. So discovery for me was the reflection point. And what I found was that it boiled to that father-son gap. You face it throughout life, but in my life before that, it was always an anger. Why didn't my dad love me? Why wasn't he around? Why didn't he take me to sports? Those things.
All the questions that little boys without a dad ask. We hear about it a lot in the training room. We're all sharing what we think we didn't have that everybody else has, but that's the biggest one. And so you became a father. How does all of this circle around from where you were? What did you hear? What did you learn?
In becoming a father, I was very apprehensive. My wife, LaQuinta, was like, I got you. Don't worry about it. But I was still apprehensive because not having that model, then it becomes, well, what do I role model it at? What does that look like? How do you be something that you've never seen done? I spent so much of my life and so much of the time being focused on what I didn't have and what I did not see. Through my breakthrough and into leadership, what became very prevalent was I've never given a thought about what it is I wanted it to be, what kind of father I saw myself being, what kind of father that I didn't have that I would be. That I knew clearly, but I was so focused on what I didn't have, I couldn't see to what I did have. And what I had was really the actual blueprint of the type of father I wanted to be. And I did have a stepfather, too, in my life that were models, but I discredited them because I didn't have the blood father. But they gave me everything I needed. So I needed to see that, and discovery helped me first identify it. Breakthrough helped me identify what it is I wanted to see and how do I break through there. And so I took that and I started to say, well, who is it that I'm going to be? Not what I'm not. What kind of father am I going to be? And that was the journey of me becoming the father that I am, which I probably say is the greatest accomplishment that I have in my life. I'm breaking a generational curse. I'm breaking through that limiting belief every day.
This is what's been screaming in my head as you're talking, is fact versus interpretation. Like all of a sudden we're in the room and we're like, well, that's a fact, but what did I make up about it? Your story is beautiful. From there, what happens?
So my wife, LaQuinta, convinces me we're going to have a kid. Brooklyn comes into this world and it's a crazy thing. I'm nervous as all get out. And so prior to that, now, LaQuinta was a Choice Center graduate.
Yes. LV 100, right?
LV 100 Century Club, almost a torchbearer. She was, I think, second or third. I think it was Glenn. Did Glenn win 100?
I think maybe it was Maynard.
Maynard. She was right there. I mean, she's the one who passed the torch over. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you made it. Because you don't know. For those out there that don't know, torchbearer is, everyone plays at a high level, but they were like the embodiment and the spirit of the team. And so, life progresses, and me and LaQuinta, we give birth to Brooklyn. And mind you, we kind of went out and got tested because LaQuinta had sickle cell anemia, which is a disease carried to avoid malaria. So it was a genetic mutation. We wanted to make sure Brooklyn didn't have it, so we did all the testing. We had Brooklyn. And 18 months into that birth, LaQuinta passes away. Unfortunately, due to bad medical care in the state, she is lost. You say this, and many graduates can relate. There's a before and after. There's a clear distinction of before and after if you play the game and do leadership and go through the entire process. I can say that there was another shift in my life from 2009 until she passed away. There was another shift. In losing her, my immediate thought wasn't woe me, as many people thought it would be. And I attribute a lot of that to the lessons that we learned in leadership. And not say it didn't hurt, because it hurt like hell. But, you take the leadership 100% responsible 100% of the time. I live my stand as if my life and the life of those that depend upon it is so I knew Brooklyn life depended upon my life. And so I wouldn't allow for myself to retreat. And I wouldn't allow for death to prey on Brooklyn and to prey on our lives. And I didn't want her to become a victim of what had occurred, because I understood that if this became a crutch in her life, she'd use it forever, and that the world doesn't care. And so I immediately went into protecting her, starting to create the environment around her of which I never want her to feel that she lacked without love, because I knew what it was like to have an environment where you felt like your dad wasn't there, or for her to say her mom's not there and she doesn't know and she can't feel and she can't love. And I didn't want that to become her narrative and story in her life. And so I thank God for this emotional intelligence of being able to distinguish that situation and discern between this hurts, this is part of life, but death doesn't rob death. Death robs life. And I didn't want my life and her life to be robbed by this death and this conversation that could be made up and that other people would make up. Even my own mother asked me, what are you going to do with Brooklyn? How are you going to raise her alone? Have you thought about giving her up? Because of the set of values that people from the South and they believe, without a mama, how's this going to happen? And I was just like, no, that's the last thing on my mind. Had this occurred in a different way, had I not done this training and that would have happened, I don't know how me and Brooklyn's life would have turned out. I can't say we would be where we're at today. I know we wouldn't be where we're at today. And I don't know if she would be whole. I know, LaQuinta and our family, her mom, everyone looks down and is happy because she's whole. That's the win. There's no greater victory than that.
And you were so graceful and such a beautiful dad. I was there and she was standing with you. You were sitting in a chair. We were seated and we were listening to the people sharing. And she was standing in front of you. And the bond it's a snapshot in my mind I will never forget. And I remember thinking, that little girl, she's going to be fine.
Yeah.
That was one of the most heart-wrenching experiences I've had at Choice Center in my 27 years, was to see you in Brooklyn and that entire church filled with people that we loved you so much. And it's one of the times that I refer back on the power of a community, because, if you think about how the energy was that day, Dwayne, and everybody was just like, what can we do? And how do we support you? And those of us from Choice Center, you had a pretty sizable family, a circle of friends, and you just put us all together and we went forward with you basically. And you never hiccuped, sir. You just kept right on going. I'm real certain that as LaQuinta is listening to us, that she would have so many beautiful things to say to you about how you moved forward with your daughter.
Yeah, it was a lot of praying. Her mom, she's a second mom to me, and Pops, her stepfather, the sisters and brothers, the entire family, the aunts, they helped us. There was times I broke down. It's not an easy thing. I'm so grateful for them. I'm so grateful for the lessons in life. I guess if I had to travel this journey, I wouldn't change anything about it. As they say, God never puts more on you than you can bear. I had everything. I had everyone. I just needed to just go through it. And I thank everyone who was there and you guys who stood by me. And sometimes you just stand in the gap and stand in prayer. So yeah, that was a tough one.
There's something we say, Dwayne, and I don't know that you heard this back so far. I think it's been more in the last decade, is that it doesn't happen to us. It happens for us.
For us.
And one of the things we learn is to respond, not be in reaction. Well, there's moments of reaction, no question about it, when it's life-threatening. But you totally took the high road in everything you handled and took care of. And
I remember your church community, that place was packed. Your
Yes.
church community,
Yeah.
your
ICLV, oh my God, yes.
Mhm.
your
2,000
brothers,
people.
yeah, your brothers from your fraternity years, all your friends you grew up with, your Choice Center community. I mean, it was beautiful. And we have a handful of graduates who go through kind of similar tragedies each year, and in those moments, what would you say are the best ways that we can support somebody when you were going through that? What did you need?
For graduates and for anyone who's going through this, I think the pillars became ingrained. You're in the room and you're hearing another person's way of getting through a certain obstacle and how they coach you to get through certain obstacles. When I was up against it, I just remember I'm 100% responsible 100% of the time. And not to play victim, not to be woe me, to receive it, to understand what this is, but not to allow myself to fall. And I think for anyone that's going through it, I believe any tragedy in life, for graduates, you guys have the tools through here. For those that are watching this that have not been through it, emotional intelligence is far greater than IQ. Emotional intelligence is greater than money. It's greater than any therapy that you can buy. Having the ability to use these tools in my life, I've used them repeatedly all the time and daily. completely. So I would say to graduates, you have the skill set, just don't pretend to know what you don't know, because you do know. For those that haven't, when you face tragedies in life, don't run to alcohol or those things that are numbing. Run towards emotional intelligence, run towards the emotional side of trying to get through those battles.
Run into it. You're
Yeah.
embodying one of the 4 pillars. You're embodying all 4 of them actually today, Dwayne, in your stories. You're an incredible role model for all of us. But you'll remember I live my stand as if my life and the lives of others depend on it. And that's exactly what you just spoke into about. You look around in that church as 2,000 people. And yes, we're all experiencing loss and we're all experiencing, we love you. How do we support you to go forward? And those 4 pillars are like guideposts for us. You're speaking it without even saying those exact words. All of us, when we deal with losing a job, death for sure, we all have this energy within human to be a victim, but those pillars really do support us. Like when we don't feel like we can put a sentence together in times of grief. I know I felt that way losing my father. And I just kept saying, I can be 100% possible for everybody else, and we're going to get through this.
Yeah.
And so thank you. La Quinta right now is beaming at how life is going for her family, those of us that got left behind. And what an incredible dad you are.
Thank you. A lot of help with that. But thank you. So got Brooklyn, and so I'm rebuilding. And lo and behold, here comes Melissa. In the time frame that we met, she kind of sparked in me an intrigue, right? I became intrigued by her, and she said it was my beauty. I said, yeah, it was, right? It was the initial, men are visual, So I saw it. We started to date, and I think what kind of took us over the top was we were dating, and she had met Brooklyn, and so Brooklyn was always saying, Daddy always picks me up, Mommy picks up all the other kids, and so she says to me, she says, hey, will Melissa mind if I call her Mommy? Melissa says, hey, she asked me this. What are your thoughts? And I said, I want you to understand that if that becomes a yes on your part, you don't go away. This is it. This is forever, because a relationship can come and go. But my daughter and I are together forever. You come around on the other side of that, that's forever. And she was like, yeah, I'm up for it. I thank God that she came in when she did. For Brooklyn, she was 3 years old, so she was beginning to get to that age and point where the other parent not being there would become a louder echo. She's going to be looking into the void, and it would be an echo back of emptiness. When Melissa came in, that echo didn't resonate long. She stepped in and became the mother that Brooklyn wanted. If you talk to Brooklyn, and she'll be there this summer, she does not talk as if she's never had a mother. That's the furthest from her mind, because all she knows is Melissa. So that's her mom. So she doesn't have that gap that so many of us have. Essentially, what I spoke into the world of her avoiding these gaps, it didn't happen. Thank God for that.
Yeah, Melissa, there's a little poetic justice because La Quinta was LV100 and Melissa is LV200.
Yes, LV200. To outside people, they look at it and they say, such a lovely union. At the time, before she enrolled, me and her were actually at our breaking point. We were at a deep inflection point in which we didn't know if we would be together forever. There were the core beliefs, the pillars that I operated in that I felt she didn't understand. And when you're being flexible, not attached to how it looks, just getting results, and then the other person is looking at you just do it, you start to build up resentment and anger, and we're not talking the same language, same accountability. I remember I was talking to her, and similar conversation that I had with LaQuinta and that Darius had with me about trust was, do you trust me to take this course? Now, mind you, we had been together already 5 years. I'm sitting there and I'm like, things aren't changing. We're going to part ways. But I got one more thing that we haven't tried, because we went to marriage therapy. We did the talking with the counselor and everything. I think I knew like this is not going to work, because the breakthrough that one needs to get to this point is not in a conversation piece between me and her. It is a conversation between her and self that needs to occur. And I knew the route. I'm like, you got to. So I asked her, I said, will you do this? Yeah. So I went online, I registered and paid. And when I paid, phone rings as Corrine. I think it was you, Corrine, and Donnell. And I don't know if it was a stretch. I don't know what was going on.
We saw it come in and we're like,
no.
Coming in. You guys are like, Dwayne. And then it's just like, Melissa's coming. Because Robin had called me and asked me. She had called me many times like, hey, what's going on? When's Melissa coming? I'm like, it'll happen when it happens. Voila. She goes in. I didn't know it was 200 though. I just knew it was, first of the year class.
We were too busy celebrating to count.
Yeah. And so voila, OB 200. It definitely is a full circle, her going. It absolutely helped her and changed our dynamics in our relationship.
Yeah, I still remember my first call with her. I still like some of them. They're just so powerful that I remember where I was. I just pulled up to the center and I was sitting in my car and like taking notes and getting to know this amazing woman that, you are now spending your life with. I still remember that. And so as she went through and had some of her own revelations, what happened in the relationship after that when she went through?
Well, it was a lot of honesty. It began by her, and this is true of everyone, and I had the same issue. I remember with LaQuinta, she says to me, you treat me the same way your mom treats you, and you see me in that same way. You lash out, you're the same way, because it's learned behavior. You go through this, you unlearn that. So for Melissa, it was the fact that she saw me in the same way her father treated her. So she looked through the lenses of every male is how my father was to me. And so then what happens is you attach a belief system on a person and what they say and what they do that is not actually what it is. And so you live through this, and now all of a sudden the dynamics of the relationship is her mad at her father or her battling, not me, it's different. So that dynamic began to crumble, and she began to see me for me. And she always says, when I first met her, I would always stare in her eyes, right? And we look through the eyes because the eyes are to the soul, right? And so you look there and you maintain eye contact because, children maintain eye contact because they have no, all these no limiting beliefs. They're innocent, right? But humans, as we get older, we start to break eye contact because of all these things. I used to look in her eyes all the time. And she says, you stop looking into my eyes. And she goes, and I realized that you probably saw nothing but darkness. But thank you, because now I'm seeing the light. And so that whole piece began to shift in our relationship. And eventually we had to build and redefine a friendship. We were dating and we were building a family, but the foundation wasn't what it should be. And so we had to go back, lay the foundation again.
What
and
a
now
beautiful.
she and I both can meet at a certain place and have a conversation around a certain topic and have that communication be full of intent and not about the surfacey things. EQ makes you get to the root of many issues, and it helps.
Watching the two of you and her like finally seeing what you were part of in this community and joining us, it's just a beautiful outflow.
What we got in seeing the community and seeing her go through the journey was her to bring that back to our family. The part that was the hardest is when there's one person in the family and the other person is not, but you're trying to move as one, can't move things the way it needs to. What we've been able to do is her being able to understand these principles is now we can bring them into the house. And now when we're raised in Brooklyn, there is a common denominator where we can go back to. I hold accountability the same. The standard's the same. How you get there is going to be different for every child, but I'm not wavering. And so she understands the importance of those. In raising our kids and trying to build our family, we have that common place now. And I think that was great for her to go out and bring back in and to see that there's other women like her. Right. And there's other conversations out there. She's not the only one who's had these dynamics. And now she has a community that she can bounce ideas off of that can help her see things when she doesn't see, right? To be the mirror sometimes, to see your blind spots.
And she developed beautiful relationships. There were 4 of them. One of them was Denise, who I just recently saw. As you're sharing this part of this story, I'm thinking about every one of us who are so passionate about having this roadmap to live by, where there's always support, there's always coaching, there's always a relationship we can reach out to. You really highlight the value of having a community so tightly knit.
Yeah, it's funny because funny story. So the first time I took her to meet Jen. So Jen's my coach. She's like a mother, right? And she hadn't seen Brooklyn. She hadn't seen me in a while. So she opens the door and Jen kisses me right here. Mwah! She just gives me a peck, right? Boom. And Melissa's like, what the hell? What is all this? Why is she giving you a hug and a kiss like that? I said, that's just Jen. I said, Jen's my coach. She loves me. She gets to meet other people and everybody's hugging her, right? And she's like, well, why are they hugging me? Why are they this way? I said, this is the environment. This is the community. They love each other and they love you through me. And so it was definitely it was different for her. And now that she's on the inside, she's just like, oh, this is great. But also, the people who've not ever been to a training, who don't know, they see that and they're like, why are they so happy? Why are they so loving?
Yeah,
and it's not until they go through it that they actually get it. And they're like, oh, I get it now. Our community is definitely one that's more needed in the world.
Yeah. Jen Tuttle, she was your leadership coach for 100 days, right?
Yes.
Okay,
She's
great.
with us, Discovery, Breakthrough, And then she went on to leadership. She always said, she goes, Dwayne, you were the reason why I did it. I couldn't let you go. Yeah, I says, well, thank you. And then she coached with me as well.
Oh, after
She
you
sure
graduated
did.
and you came back and coached?
Yeah, yeah.
What team was that, Dwayne?
It was LV 110, 111, LV One World. At the time, in that point in my career, I had never been, a manager or a leader of people, right? I never had that. And that was part of one of my conversations. I don't know if I can lead people. Going through Discovery and Breakthrough, that was something that came up. Well, here I am. We're going into Breakthrough weekend, and Robin comes to me and she says, I want you to captain this team. And at the time, it was just 110. And I'm like, oh my God, I am so nervous. But, I want to say thank you, because it was the first time in my life that someone believed in me, and knowing what leadership means to the center. Leadership is the heart of our center, right? You have the Discovery and Breakthrough, but the leadership is where the rubber hits the road. It's where you take everything from before and you got to put it into use. And trusting me with that. That was crazy. And then 111 got merged. So at that time, it became the largest team. And I'm nervous. I had no idea how I would ever do it. Robin, thank you for one. And my coaching staff would, I had Priscilla, I had Eileen, I had Jen Tuttle, Corrine with Donnell, so many. It gave me the tools that I use in my own business to this day, the tools I used in my later administration career when I went back into healthcare. That was so pivotal because it gave me the opportunity to learn something that I didn't know. It gave me self-belief, self-awareness. And here I am at 27 with the largest team in ChoiceCenter history to graduate up to that point. And it was life-changing. It was absolutely life-changing. And I still remember nervously getting on the coaches' calls, saying to myself, I don't have a clue about how this call is going to go. And Robin mirroring, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to start it off. What are the declarations? Buy wins. And what's the results? Where are we going with it? And it became a thing in life. And so even in life, even when I'm coaching, even when I'm leading out in the workforce, it's not necessarily a declaration, but it is, what are we doing? Who's doing it? And by when? And what are we looking to create? And those principles happen in life, and it happens in my household. It happens with our kids. It happens with everything. So thank you for that, because that was pivotal. And I think it really set me up for the next part of my life.
Well, first of all, thank you. You were a remarkable captain. That team won Olympic gold medal level leadership with you under your tutelage. I'm going to say one thing to you, like a flashcard. TK. You guys just really were like twin brothers coming together. You just had a friendship that was so amazing that I watched explode.
TK was out of San Diego, was in the financial advisory business. I learned a lot from him. Looking at TK, right, back in those days, but he was lean, he was muscular, he had the San Diego look on, the hair, the pink shirts and the jeans and the loafers and everything. And I really admired the way he would speak. We got a chance to break down past all those layers, and we got a chance to know each other authentically. I say this to the people who don't quite understand it. It's like the game of golf. When you get out there, it does not matter what you're wearing. It doesn't matter your watch. It doesn't matter what neighborhood you come from. It doesn't matter about any of that. It's you and the other person. If that ball goes right or left, your ego has to go with it, because everyone sees that shot. You can't hide behind it. You can't hide behind any other stories. And so what I love about our bond was, at that time, we had a chance to get to know people and understand each other at a deeper level where we understand what human was. Trevor, being a homosexual, became my buddy. I went to his house. We ate dinner together. He had his little dog, Taco. Remember Taco?
Taco, yes.
Taco?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Trevor gave me shirts and shoes, and you get to know people at a human level, right? Above and beyond all the premonitions and what the world and where, and backgrounds and where you're from, you get to know people. That bond, that brotherhood we built is something that we always have. And we still keep in touch. People from other LVs and during that time frame are all friends on Facebook. They all chime in, they all text. It has truly been, it was great as far as LV 98 and the teams after. I mean, so crazy. Priscilla was the LV, I think, before me. She married into my family.
Oh, she did?
And
really?
yeah. So Connor, her son, is my cousin's son.
Wow.
You
Wow.
talk about, and Priscilla was on my team, the staff, because I was like, I need an A+ personality because I'm an analyzer and I'm gonna get in my head, and I need someone like a Robin to help keep everything, A cookie cutter for me. And that's why I was like, I need Priscilla on my team, and she was like, all right, I got you, and that's how we met. Talk about a small world.
She is amazing.
Yeah,
So
wow.
if there's somebody out there listening saying, maybe I should do this, they're going to see this because they know a grad, what would you say to people that are considering coming in?
I would say if they would like to understand how the world should work and what could be possible to take a step inside. I think today online you see so many other things we had to go and research. Like we had to read Wayne Dyer's The Power of Intention, right? We had to read the 4 Agreements and then the 5th Agreement. And then those were books, there weren't quotables online at the time, right? Where people can get the cliff note. There wasn't all these life coaches and things to get through the breakthroughs. And I think that in many cases, people take these things online and they think they got it. But there's nothing like immersing yourself into a very rigorous self-development. And I don't mean a development program where you're getting books and things that you write down notes, but immersing yourself into emotional intelligence training at the way we do it. They will get breakthroughs. Their life will do a complete 180, and it will become the life that they dreamed of. And as you used to say, is dream in color. Right now, everyone's dreaming in black and white, but this training adds that color, and the breakthrough that a person is looking for could be in that conversation that they're not having with themselves, and they won't have it with yourself. If you think you will, you won't, because you haven't. That's a quotable. So when you have a coach for 100 days standing with you, and you have a Chris that walks into the room for your breakthrough, you have that type of accountability, you will look. There's no hiding. You will face it, and you can transform your life just like I have, to where you live your life on purpose. You live your life on intent, and you break free from these worldly conversations around what matters. What matters is, where you live, what kind of car, how you, all these things that you think are so important that are holding you back, and then you realize you're free from them. I tell my kids, and Melissa knows all the time, I live for experiences. I don't live for anything material. I live for experiences. I was the opposite before I came there. I live for the material. I live for the status. I live for the titles. I live for the prestige. And if I'm not on a magazine and I'm not, this and that. But now all I do is live for the experience.
You know what, Dwayne, like I'm bursting. Since you have been here, we have a graduate who we're personal friends with, of course, and love like crazy. And he wrote a book for you, and it became a bestseller. And he was either first or second guest on the podcast. His name is Bill Perkins, and it's called Die with Zero. And it's about trading time for experiences and living a fully embodied life experientially. He puts a whole new perspective on retirement savings and how to really, he created a formula. He teaches us literally, after he did the training, he teaches us how to trade our money for experiences, and to know that when we're 80, we're not going to be climbing Mount Everest. So you got to plan and strategize your life and your funding. His theory is that we're all saving for those years we're not working. He reorganizes the whole thing around living a fully experiential, outrageous, do everything you want to do with your family and friends. It's all about love and experiences.
I want that book.
I got one for you.
Yes,
I'm going to
I
send
want
you
that book.
his podcast. Absolutely. Speaking of intention and kind of time bucketing and planning all these things, you are today this incredibly successful State Farm agency owner. Was that one of your goals way back in LV98 in 2009? Tell us a little bit about how you created this through leadership.
In my PSP, the personal strategic plan that you develop prior to leadership, I had put on there to start a business. And talking with Robin, she had told me about her background in insurance. I wanted to open a State Farm insurance agency. At the time, because I had a short sale on my credit due to the housing, State Farm has a strict criteria. You could not get an agency unless you qualified for their funding. And so by having a short sale, you were automatically disqualified. So the gap in my PSP, Robin allowed for me to go work at a State Farm office. So two parts. One part was she made me exhaust every possible option in trying to find funding and credit to start an insurance practice, whether it was a brokerage or an Allstate or some other route. All of them said no due to my credit. So then she says, all right, I'll allow for you to go. So I went in, I worked with another agent's office, and I learned. It still was written down. And I say this to everyone, the power of writing something down. And this is pre vision board stuff that people do today. We're talking in none of the stuff was all shared around. It was just you learn it through experiential, right, by going. So, you write it down, you put your PSP together, and the power of not accepting no. So here I am. I go back into corporate America, and LaQuinta dies. In that moment, what I knew was so many dreams, so many woulda, couldas, so many memories were wasted and put off because we were planning for tomorrow. And when I buried her, so much of myself, half of myself was buried with her because half of who I was with her. And you bury your dreams, you bury your goals, you bury all these tomorrows that you keep putting off. That moment removed the fear. Any fear, judgment, or failure, or what people thought, because I realized when you're laying there, people only remember how you made them feel, what you were in their lives. No one ever cared about how much money she made, whether she was, a nurse or not. No one cared about that. All they cared about was her interaction and who she was as a person. And it was just a reminder of the finite of life. And so then I said, I'm going back. Like that's not complete. And having that last bit stripped, I went back. And mind you, this is '08. I left in 2015 to open. It takes you a year to open. So open in 16. So you're saying 9 to 2015 is 6 years to go back and finally complete that PSP. It was 100% complete on third weekend, but it wasn't solidified. And it's crazy how the universe will bring things back. Something that you put out into the universe 8, 9 years ago will come back full circle to say, hey, you wrote this with the power of intention. Here it is. You get to complete it. So State Farm for me was something that was there. I love being an agent. I love the impact I can have in the community. It gives me a sense of purpose and what I can provide. It also allows for me to be the father that I envision. For me, there's no greater dynamic that I could ever ask for, because anything different, I wouldn't be able to do what I do over here. And that's my life's purpose. And so knowing that if anyone who wants to come to this course and training, you want clarity in your life's purpose. If you're out here believing you're doing work and you're not finding value, you're void. Rich people commit suicide all the time. So if you're only chasing money, that's not going to fill you. Or if you're chasing a marriage, that's not going to fill you. If you're chasing jewelry, all those things that we learned, that's not where it's at. It's living value and purpose. That's what I know. I know clearly what my value and purpose is right now. That is how I completed my PSP.
I love that.
100%.
And
Go ahead. That distinction, 100% is you.
100% possible, 100% of the time.
There you go, buddy. I knew it was about to come out of your mouth because of the way you were telling the story. I was like,
we keep talking about the 4 pillars. Maybe we should share them with anybody that doesn't know them. So you just mentioned the first one, right? 100% is possible 100% of the time. What's another one?
I live my stand as if my life and the lives of others depend upon it.
My vision
and commitment dictates my ways and actions and ways of being.
Yes,
to
right
that,
on.
To that,
and one more.
Maybe we should say it all together.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
If it's to be,
it's up to me.
That's right.
That's right. If it's to be, it's up to me.
You are a walking, talking burst of love and joy. And you have brought alive so much about why we commit ourselves to having this be present and available for people all over the world. Dwayne, you're in the foundation of all this, and I'm happy to have the minute to say to you, you are one of the pillars of leadership. Each generation carries it forward. And so you gave a lot of acknowledgement to a lot of us today that were along the way with you. You are us. You are one of the graduates that have perpetuated this. We're in our 27th year. Thank you.
Thank you, and Corrine, for being the stand. I mean, you guys have been through the fire. I'm so grateful because now I get to send my daughter. Brooklyn gets to come to team leadership. She'll probably do every other summer TL and then go to grad school. And I'm like, and then you get to come out and then you get to go to Leadership Las Vegas. You get to go and do this. I can't wait to see her on the other side of everything, because even though I know she's being raised with it, we all know that the conversations are there, and whatever that looks like, to see what that breakthrough is like on the other side. And so to everyone that's there at the center for the last 27 years, thank you guys, because the gift that I get to give Brooklyn is going to be phenomenal, and it's going to do nothing but elevate her more. And then Carter and then Olivia.
Yeah, you got 3 of them now.
You got
Yes,
stair
I
steps
do.
there, buddy.
I do. I'll be coming to the center a lot.
You're
By the time,
back. You're back in the
yeah,
saddle.
yeah. By the time Olivia comes, this will be all gray, and that's gonna be awesome. I won't lead her discovery or breakthrough, but I may lead some. So we'll see.
I think
Love it.
I think that's a conversation we need to have lunch.
Yes.
So you've talked a couple times about a State Farm, like have a State Farm agency. What was it about State Farm over all the other agencies that you could have? What was important
You
to
know,
you about that one?
the unique thing in State Farm is that you can't buy it. It's a product in which they have a core belief system. You know, you hear the jingle, like a good name of State Farm is there. But what's greater, that's just a commercial. But what it is, they have a steadfast promise to deliver what they said they would do, no matter what. And so they're not publicly traded. So they have a unique core value about the organization. You interview and you're selected by them to become an agent and get that lifetime contract. And when I look at State Farm, and I know there's history in every corporation in America, but when you look at the company today, there is no more of a diverse workforce that reflects every race, every sex. If you say the colors of the rainbow, they have it. And not only that, they support you in being successful. They develop programs, processes, systems. They are fully invested in you, the agent, being the most successful business owner that you can be. When you meet a State Farm agent, they are truly the cream of the crop of not only people and citizens in the community, but professional and some of the most savvy entrepreneur and business people you'd ever meet. For me, it was like I found my tribe. We take pride at State Farm in saying that we're not like every other agency. And although on the surface, it looks like we all function the same, and you get to the nitty gritty of it, we're not. And that's why we're the number one company. And I say that proudly.
I see that you're proud, and I want to acknowledge that you are absolutely spot on. I spent my young adult years, my father had an agency, and I played there and had my own agency. I took those tests when I was 18 years old. I couldn't be an agent at that point. I had to wait till I got to 21. What you're speaking about State Farm is such a beautiful testimony to they do business fairly. And I think it's a good time to be able to say that publicly, because it really is. And there's a conversation out there because of our tragedy in Malibu.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you about that. You know, I'm one of the people that lost a home in Malibu in January. And in the days following, there was so much chatter on the internet about insurance and policies being canceled months before and stuff like that. And you pop up in my feed.
Yep.
And you actually are delivering a message and just being so honest and transparent and talking about what had happened there. And it was both comforting and supportive, but also Dwayne's in Nevada. You know, here he is just trying to put out some messages so that people understand like what's happening. You know, here's what we're doing behind the scenes to support. What had you make a post like that when that's not even your
area?
You know, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Nevada's my area. I am licensed in California. I'm licensed in Oregon, Arizona. But what was occurring was it was slander, and it was a lot of hearsay. And it was early on in the moments, but we were under attack, and people were calling my office, calling my employees. I know our company. I've gone to our corporate offices. I met these people, and these people are genuine people. These aren't suit wearers that fly private, that are $500 million people that are driving these. These aren't the type of people that lead our company. The people are everyday people. They're real, and they would never, ever cancel a policy and do something unethical for what purpose? When we're a mutual company, we actually have money that we have to set aside for natural disaster. So I just wanted to get out there and get out front and say, whatever was happening prior to the Malibu fires was a complete Department of Insurance and governor and business transaction. Happens all over, all the time. It just so happened that now we have a tragedy in the middle. We insure more than any other company. To this day, we still do. It wasn't the fact that we bailed, but people were making it seem like we did a bait and switch. And it's the same way I would do, with anything, right? And I want to just keep the integrity and keep the message and be fair. Same thing happened, with graduates by ChoiceCenter years ago. People, they do this, they do that. And you're like, nah. Let's set the record straight. This is what we are. This is what we do. I'm glad that you got the message. I hope many other people did.
Like you said, it just gave me real info about like what was happening and how it all works. I don't know, it just meant a lot to me. So
Is your house getting rebuilt?
I was just down there a few weeks ago. Malibu is just gone. I mean, it was heart wrenching. I drove for like 6 minutes on PCH and just not a single house. I mean, it's crazy to get in. The National Guard was there and had to show I was resident. I think it's going to take years, and there's a lot of complications there. A lot of homes had septic tanks because they were built, like in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and now all of the rules have changed about plumbing and things like that. So there's a lot of just structure that's going to need to be figured out, or somebody could start to rebuild. So it's going to be a long-term project down there. But
I saw the comment the same day that Corrine did. I hope you're hearing what she's saying to you very clearly, because you were the first person that said, hold on a minute here. And you're not even in California, you're here. And for me, that was you, Dwayne, just being responsible at 100% and carrying a message because it was the right thing to do. It's easy to ignore it. It's not California. I'm in Nevada, like all those things. It's just another demonstration of the leader that you are and the kindness that you extended to people. If all they did was read what you wrote and got one little breath of air for a minute, like, okay, maybe this isn't going to be so. Like, think about it. When we're in those tragedies, it goes crazy. And that's just a demonstration of who you are. We were proud of you. We're like, yeah, get in there, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, I say this much: at 27, I don't know if I could have done it, but coming out of leadership, that's exactly here's the mic. Say it. So I had my mic. I used it for good. So yes.
You are a graduate of Journey Within 11, and we are building Journey Within 15 right now.
Yes.
What was the, heartbeat of the value of the 6 months that you spent in Journey Within, and why you would share it with anybody?
For me, going through JW11, the distinguishment that I got between self and understanding that context for anyone who's not gone, it's so peaceful. And it brings about a certain self-actualization, I think, and I hope I'm not giving anything away. We believe so much in our own ability. And it's part of the front end of a discovery and breakthrough, right? We're the creators. We speak things into existence. We are source, right? I'm standing for all these things. But then there's a secondary awareness that I gained was I can't even tell my heart to beat or to stop. I can't blink. I can't tell my blood to flow. I can't tell myself to breathe. I can't tell myself to hear. So of the percent of what we're in control of in our lives, the very souls and foundation of who we are and the being we are, we can't even control that. So when you start to go to that microcosm of that viewpoint, right, it changes how you interact with so many dynamics of the world, right? So it's the journey within, because for me, I got a chance to understand in silence and understand those voices and understand that relationship with self. And I think that for any graduate, I would consider it the ultimate tier of getting into emotional intelligence and getting into that journey. And some of the readings that we're taking of thousands of years ago, meditation, understanding those writings and how you interpret them today, that it was a very different experience. And I think for anyone who has graduated, this is definitely something to take on, because it's a totally different ride, totally different roller coaster. In leadership for those graduates, you have a coach, right? And they're setting the pace. And you have a Robin, you have a Corrine, you have a center, you have calls, you have this, leadership legacy, you have all this. Well, then when you get to JW, you know these things. And then it becomes, well, why aren't you doing this? What is the conversation that you're saying about yourself? What is it? Why? Because you already know what that is. And it's astonishing when you have someone say, well, I don't know. Are you going to do this? Is this important to you? Your own self-accountability. What does the reading mean to you? What does the meditation mean? What is the practices? What are these things? What are they? Are you doing them? Are you not? It becomes a silence of you and self and how you're interacting on a daily basis at a different level. And you start to question, well, why? And what's these things? So I think it's really cool. I think it's like it's a flip side to the other side. I say, we've been working on one side of the universe all the time on discovery, breakthrough, leadership, and all, samurai and all these other games. And then you get to the other side, it's just like, okay, yeah, silence. What's in the silence? And what I always say to myself too, I do this all the time. I live in so much judgment. I think we all do. But I can walk. I'm like, dude, why am I in judgment right now? I never would have done that before the program. I just thought that was just it. I could just be judging something, and I'm like, why does that even matter? Why am I attached to that judgment?
Yeah.
And it's just like little things like that. So you're a graduate. This is a fun one.
By the way, Dwayne, what is your contract?
I'm a passionate, courageous, powerful man. In my old office, I had it in the center. It's not up here, so in my old office, I moved. But in my office, I had my contract, and then around it, I built all the family photos. So if I had to find a photo of it, and the funny thing, people would ask me, and they said, why is that your contract? I said, well, I'm going to be passionate about whatever it is that I do. I'm going to lead with courage, and I want to be powerful in myself. And that contract is something that is definitely dear to me. And my kids don't know what it means yet, but they will.
Yeah. How do you're a parent of 3 now. How is it that you are integrating some of these learnings that have stuck with you since 2009 when you were here into how you're parenting or how you're raising the kids?
I guess it's in how I do it. It's just how I live. I don't allow for them to say can't. I interrupt any conversations that are not forward focused. And so as they're out in the world and they're coming back home, I'm a big interruption to what the world's saying. And so, and the way I kind of do with my children is positive thought. I can't tell them the power of intention, right? Because they don't understand that word, right? Carter will be like, what do you mean intention? But I can tell him, what's the number one rule? Positive thought. And then with all the rules in the house, no matter if it's Olivia up to Brooklyn, I maintain the standard, but I coach them differently on how to get there. And so I'll ask them questions around, well, how does this make you feel? What did you hear me say? And I have them repeat back to me what they heard me say. And it allows for me to say, no, that's not what I meant. This is what I'm saying. And so I've been using those methods as much as possible without yelling, and sometimes because I'm still a dad, right? But I use these methods that I learned to introduce emotional intelligence. Just funny. So Carter just had his birthday on Sunday, and before he made his wish, I just whispered in his ear and I says, hey, this is a wish for you to not wish for something material. I said, because that's not what it's about, but it's for you to wish something that's in your heart and in your mind and what you want to see yourself being. And take a moment and think about it. And Melissa, she didn't know why I said it, but then he paused and he closed his eyes and he said something, and then he blew out his candles. Now, I don't know what he said. I said, you never to share that. That's only between you and yourself. But what I'm trying to instill in him is, okay, what's that comment? What's that thing about myself? What is it? And so I do that with Brooklyn all the time. I'm telling her, hey, she's going to school. And I'm like, hey, what's that voice telling you, right? What is the voice saying about how you look? What is the voice saying about your hair? I'm asking her. And she's like, she knows what the voice is because she knows. I said, I'm talking to you. There's somebody inside that's interpreting something. And you're probably saying when you're mad, dad ain't shit. Or dad is crazy. Or I don't agree with that. I said, but that voice is the voice I want you to tell me what it's saying. I said, because you're going to tell me on the surface something different. But I want to know what that voice is saying because that is the voice that's with you all the time, even when I'm not here. And so that's how I kind of do it in my household. We don't have contracts. I know some people have contracts and family contracts. I know families have done that. As Brooklyn gets older, we may do a family contract once she has her own and she understands it, like with Melissa's and mine. Just those things, live on purpose, little by little. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
I love it. And how old did that little guy turn?
He turned 9. Carter's 9. And then Olivia is 4. I call her my love bug because she's so loving. She's so loving that I get all her colds. Every one of them. Every one of them. If she's sick, I'm sick. I am sick. Everybody says, and I'm the one who gets sick sometimes. Melissa's like, oh my God. She goes, she is just, because she's always loving me. She's always wanting to kiss me. She always wants to hug me. And Carter is, I get to live vicariously through him. In many cases, I'm being the father to the son that I never had. And so I am overly involved in his sporting activities. I'm overly invested. Like I'm the one, hey, we got one-on-one trainings. We got the futsal. I'm finding people who do this. I'm on Facebook. I'm doing all that. And Brooklyn has the same one-on-ones and volleyball. And so in many ways, I get a chance to be the father to myself. So it's also a healing process for me in being a father to him, because I can build him up to be the greater version of myself.
Yes.
And that's why I didn't want to give him my name. I want him to have his own identity, but I wanted to reinvent and rebuild, what would be the perfect Dwayne, and this is who he would be. And so I kind of like doing that, with him.
I love that. Wow. Well, Dwayne, we wrap each episode having our guest create an EQ stretch challenge for our listeners to complete before the next episode drops. So, what is an EQ stretch challenge that you would like to offer our grads and listeners?
Grads and listeners, so it's open.
Yeah.
Goes out to the public, sir, with the vid.
A stretch. What would be a fair stretch? A grad could do this one quite easily in one day, in an 8-hour period, to take a paperclip, because it's out there now, trade up that paperclip to see what they get at the end of 8 hours, reintroduce themselves to the power of intention and the power of value, because too often I think in this world we've placed value in the wrong place, and we've lost the value of just the simplest things and how simple they are. So I would challenge my listeners to take a paperclip and in 8 hours, see what you can trade that paperclip up to.
Yep. And you're referring to the red paperclip game that a gentleman named Kyle McDonald started, and he wrote a book about it, right? And it's all over YouTube. And he took a paperclip, and over, it was like a year, he traded it up for a house in Canada. So he starts with it, and it's about kind of bringing forth that inner child and that fun, that power of intention, and enrolling somebody in, hey, what's the value of this? What would you give me for this paperclip, right? And then when you get that item, it's going to the next person and saying, hey, what would you give for this? Yeah.
Can I get 2 challenges?
Sure.
Sure.
Do a kind gesture. I think there's not enough kindness in the world, and it would be just simply to pay it forward. And by doing so, it would be the next place that you're out, whether it be in the drive-through, getting a cup of coffee, sitting down to eat, to if you see a family, or if you have a ability to buy a meal, do something kind like that. I think I love doing that and surprising people all the time. And I like to do it and then disappear, because it gives them a belief that there's some good in the world, and it warms people up. Because I've had someone do it to me, and I instantly was like, oh my God, that made me feel so good. And I instantly did it. And so I think for some of our listeners out there, you'd be surprised at the magic that occurs when you do something for someone and you don't want nothing in return. There's no publicity. That is the purest of giving. And it comes back to you in a different way.
Over and over again. Wow.
Yeah. That sense of wonder when that happens to you out of the blue. Yeah.
So much fun. Well, thank you. Thank you for all of your generous heart and soul today. Like, you just really, first of all, we're living in a time that we're listening to and creating podcasts. That in itself, we've been through generations together, all of us. And it's so wonderful to have you back home. And thank you.
Yeah, we've come a long way since Yahoo groups that we're on a
yeah.
Yeah.
And I still got that email, and I still got like Egal and Youssef's PSPs in my Yahoo inbox. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Thank you guys for allowing me in this space. Thank you for selecting my story to share. Thank you guys for taking another route to be the stand, to get the message out, to push forward our purpose and our vision at the center, and that is to make the world a better place. And so thank you guys, and I love you, and I will see you all soon.
Very soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
so
you,
much, Dwayne.
New episodes of EQU release every Tuesday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Podbean, and ChoiceCenter.com. See you next week.